how can they hold any weight? Well, here's another example of longevity associated with chocolate, and that's the study done by Harvard in the area off the coast of Panama of a remote tribe called the Kuna people, the Kuna Indians of Panama. And they're a unique tribe in the sense that they share a genetic heritage with many of the surrounding tribal cultures. However, their unique location provides them with certain lifestyle factors that are slightly different. Now, they eat almost identical diets to the surrounding cultures. They live very similar lifestyles, except for one factor. In the region that they live, there are an abundance of cacao trees, and they happen to drink a drink of cacao, or chocolate. It's actually more like a hot chocolate. It's warm. It's been heat processed, so again, it's not raw chocolate, but it's a dark chocolate drink that's bitter, and they consume this 5 times a day on average. This is a lot of chocolate they're consuming. This is more than most enthusiastic raw foodists who consume a lot of cacao. And this is an Indian tribe that has been doing this for generations and generations and has had no problems with it. Now, the interesting thing is that this Harvard study noticed that they had longer lifespans than the surrounding areas. Yet this was a controlled factor where they saw that the chocolate was the only difference between them and the surrounding cultures. They also noticed lower instances of disease, such as prostate cancer, cardiovascular disease, and other cancers, diabetes, etc. So, not only were they living longer, they had better health during those years. And finally, I'd like to give the example of the famous Dutch chocolate study. Well, it wasn't specifically done on chocolate, it was done on 200 men in the Netherlands. And it was has been nicknamed the chocolate study because one of the resulting factors that they realized was the effect that chocolate consumption has on health. So these 200 men who were studied for about 20-year period gave the researchers the results that their conclusion was that the more chocolate you eat, the longer you'll live. And this was shown by the fact that the men who lived the longest happened to be eating the most chocolate. The men who happened to be eating medium amounts of chocolate, on average, were living between this longer-lived group and the lower end of this sliding scale, you could say. And those who were living the shortest were eating the least amount of chocolate. And these were Dutch men who were all eating similar type diets, and they again found that lower instances of metabolic syndrome type diseases were lower in those consuming the most chocolate. And this was processed chocolate once again. It wasn't raw cacao. But it just shows us that with the benefits that raw cacao offers, we can actually get even more benefits for our health than the processed stuff that you hear about in a lot of these studies. Check my article out in the top right-hand info box if you want more information on all the benefits that raw cacao has as a food in general, as well as benefits over the processed chocolate. So my hopes to dissuade a lot of the naysayers out there on raw cacao. I mean, some people are going to stick with their belief systems, their BS, you could say, about it, and that's fine with me. I'm just putting my voice out there, and hopefully some people can hear what I'm saying and take it into account in their own lifestyle choices. Everyone has their own choice of what they do. However, the naysayers are obviously going to continue to try and find little things to argue their point. And I could go on and on about all these little things I see people using to prove their points, yet they're not really, they're not weighted that well. And one more of those fairly big things that people are mentioning out there is the oxalic acid content of raw cacao. Now, right off the bat I'll say what we know from raw food compared to cooked food is that the oxalic acid content of raw foods tends to not be as harmful to the body as cooked oxalic acids. An oxalic acid is something that combines with calcium to become an oxalate, which can collect in the body and cause calcification in various parts of the body. And this, in essence, also inhibits calcium absorption because it's getting used up in forming the oxalate and it's taking away from the calcium, free calcium in your body to be used. Now, so we know that raw oxalic acid is nowhere near as harmful as cooked oxalic acids, even if it's even harmful at all. It actually could potentially be beneficial, and I have read some instances where it's actually been said to be beneficial to the digestive tract. And you can look up the work of Dr. Norman Walker to find out more information about that. Now, the oxalic acid content of chocolate is actually not all that high. It is there, but there are plenty of foods that also have oxalic acids. For example, spinach is not quite 10 times as high in oxalic acids as cacao or chocolate, but it is significantly higher. It's much more than 5 times. Now, the amount of spinach people would eat at a sitting is different from the amount of chocolate you're going to eat. Yet, that difference we're talking about is by weight. So, if something is fairly low in something, and yet this other thing is much higher in it, yet when you eat this one thing, you're going to eat a much larger amount of it than this thing, you're actually going to get several times as much oxalic acid as you would in that little thing, even if you were to eat a moderately high amount of it. Now, my conclusion is that oxalic acid in chocolate is pretty insignificant. It's a very small amount. There's plenty of foods that have way more that people are consuming. People are getting a lot of oxalates on a raw food diet if you're eating a lot of plant foods, and it doesn't seem to be a problem. Of course, if you have a problem such as kidney stones or any calcification problem, you're naturally going to want to avoid foods high or moderately high in oxalates or oxalic acid. And in that instance, I would say yes, avoid chocolate perhaps. Judge by your own reaction to it. Do you get lower back pain when you consume chocolate? If so, that could be your body telling you that there's a problem there with calcification in that area of your body. But again, this isn't specifically the problem with that food. It's the problem in your body that you have to address. Perhaps down the road you're going to have the ability to consume it again. And this can be seen with many different types of food. Bee pollen. People have reactions to bee pollen fairly commonly. Yet, there are some people that will wait a little bit, their health will get better, their constitution becomes better, and eventually they can actually handle the bee pollen. Same can be said about other foods. And raw chocolate is actually just another one of those foods.